Do you ever find yourself going above and beyond to help somebody else out, to make sure that they're okay, that they feel happy? Do you ever feel like really uncomfortable if somebody makes a request of you that you really want to say no to, but you just can't find the way to articulate that, and then you end up caving and saying yes? If so, stick around. This video is for you. You may well be a people pleaser, and we're going to look at the signs of people pleasing and some really helpful strategies on how you can begin to address that, because it really impacts our ability to connect into who we truly are, our authentic selves, and to be the most confident and fulfilled version of ourselves. So let's look first of all at, how do I know if I'm a people pleaser? Let's look at some really common signs that we want to be watching out for. So the first is difficulty saying no. People pleasers often really struggle to say no, even when they're overscheduled, they're overwhelmed, even approaching burnout, and they just don't have the time or the energy to commit. So this real struggle with saying no and owning your own time and energy. Fear of disapproval. If you find yourself constantly worrying about what others are thinking of you and making choices that are based on their approval, that's a real key sign of a people pleaser. How about ignoring your own needs? Do you put everybody else's needs above your own? People pleasers tend to neglect their own well-being in favor of taking care of others. And that can come at a very high cost in all areas of their lives, and most worryingly, health-wise. How about feeling guilty? Do you ever feel guilty when you prioritize your own needs, your own self-care over someone else? It's a classic trait of a people pleaser that they find it almost impossible to do something for themselves without it triggering feelings of guilt and that they're being selfish. Avoiding conflict. People pleasers will often go to great lengths to avoid conflict, even if it means suppressing their true feelings. They'll often say that they don't want to rock the boat, they don't want to upset the apple cart, they don't want to make people unhappy. And finally, over apologizing. If you're always saying sorry, even when it's not your fault, you might be overcompensating to make other people happy, to make sure that they're comfortable, that their needs are met, to the detriment of your own. So now let's talk about where this comes from. What's the source of this? The origin story of the people pleaser. And so often with these types of behaviors, we need to kind of look back into our childhood to discover what went on there in our earliest years. So we learned to be who we are today through our earliest childhood experiences. And there's no training to be a parent. Any listener who is a parent knows this only too well. So the vast majority of us are, walking wounded in a sense. We're carrying the impact wounds from our childhoods, that derive from anything, as such as unintentional, unskillful parenting, right up to, on the other end of the spectrum, really intentional, abuse or real neglect and violence. So somewhere along the line, a people pleaser will have learned to, need less, to want less, and just to caretake to the needs of others. In those formative early childhood years, we learned that to be accepted and loved by our parents, or at the extreme end of that spectrum again, just to be safe, that we needed to please or appease a parent or carer. So speaking up for yourself was something that may have been against the unwritten family rules. Standing up for yourself may have been labeled, and what you wanted may have been labeled selfish. And generally, there may have been an atmosphere that accommodating accommodating others was what was encouraged. So, what are our obstacles to really tackling people pleasing? There's some really tricky aspects to people pleasing that make it quite difficult for people to address it. And the first really important one is that, wow, do you know, it serves other people sometimes in our environment. There's a reward also for ourselves. The behavior is often rewarded by social and cultural norms, particularly for women, of being caretakers and helpers. And, oh, she's lovely, isn't she? Oh, that's very kind. She's always ready to say yes. She's always volunteering. You can always rely on her. She's a safe pair of hands. And this and we can find ourselves, the expectation can often be more on women that they will say yes and they will be accommodating, and that comes with this sort of double-edged sword, that if you don't do it, that there can be a backlash of, you know, she's not very nice, she's a bit of a bitch, she's hard to deal with, particularly in the workplace. So it's a bit of a sticky habit and behavior to disentangle from when it has these dynamics at play, and when there is that reward of kind of, oh, I'm seen as very helpful and people are acknowledging me and, you know, saying nice things about me, and that can just perpetuate this cycle. It also gives us this, you know, this sense of control. It can feel quite powerful at times to be a people pleaser, that we can just sort of scan an environment and kind of read. We feel that we can read people very well and we can give them what they need. And so we can become almost like this chameleon who morphs into whatever version of us that the other person needs and finds most acceptable to them. So it can be pretty hard to give up really a dysfunctional behavior, what is essentially a dysfunctional behavior, as sort of abandonment of the self and who we truly are, you know, as we're adapting to the signals from our environment of what we feel is needed and wanted of us. It's very difficult to give up that kind of dysfunctional behavior when you get a lot of credit for it, or you got a lot of credit for it growing up. So if you're recognizing yourself in this, in anything that I've said so far, and you want to begin to make changes, I just want to outline some of the things that you can begin to think about and some small actions that you can begin to take that are all part of this transformative journey to kind of leaving the people pleasing behind and stepping into a more powerful version of yourself and a much more authentic version of yourself. And you can begin with some simple steps, and here are some. First of all, practice self-awareness. Just notice. It's not very difficult. Just notice what you're thinking. It's sometimes helpful to think about zooming out. When we zoom out from what's going on, we can observe rather than zooming in. We kind of obsess over our thoughts. So you want to zoom out. Just pay attention to your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, your actions. You know, are you agreeing to things out of habit? Or is there a genuine interest that's driving your decision? Just notice. Secondly, set boundaries. Start small. It can be a very difficult and maybe overwhelming topic for people, but just learning to say no in low stakes situations can be really helpful. So you want to say no to what you don't want, so that you can really honor and say yes to what you do want and what you do need. And it's really important to remember that it is okay to prioritize your own needs. And I recognize that this is a journey. I absolutely recognize that. Focus on building your self-confidence. That's what I help people do, and it isn't a one step and done, but just perhaps think about engaging in activities that make you feel really good, that make you feel competent and accomplished, and then recognize and record your wins, however small. That is just a small step that will help you build your self-confidence. Communicate openly. Express. Don't keep it inside. Express your thoughts and feelings assertively, clearly, and respectfully. Again, you can start in low-stakes situations if it's really difficult for you to speak up for yourself. Imagine you're in a restaurant and the waiter gets your order wrong, your steak isn't cooked quite right, you know, send it back. Honest communication, honest, clear communication is essential. It's key to healthier relationships. And lastly, seek support. If you have trauma in your past that's really driving your people pleasing behavior, if it felt unsafe for you to do anything but please others or appease some early carers in your life, then seek the help of a licensed, specialized counselor or therapist. Otherwise, you might consider working with a coach who can help you change your behavior and begin to adopt healthier behavior patterns that can really get you more connected into who you truly are and your needs, your wants, your values, and begin to live a life that's an expression of those rather than a reaction and a response to what other people are expecting and wanting or demanding of you, depending on the situation. So those are the types of journeys that I take people on. I take people on a personalized journey from dealing with these recognized issues of, we've just been talking about people pleasing, and beginning to build the habits and practices to grow into their most confident self. So I want you to remember that it is okay to care for others, but not at the expense of your own well-being. If you're ready to take a transformative journey yourself, please feel free to contact me for a free exploratory session on how I might be able to serve you. You'll also find a link in the comments to have a look at some free resources that I offer. And finally, if you found this video useful, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and check back for more content. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.